time. Hans Westermos, DC's Editor-in-Chief. Matthew Farnell, please tell us about ESG from EchoSense. We have some time for some questions at the end. I have some questions, but first, you have a presentation. I'm going to stop talking. Off you go.
Thanks, Sebastian. Hi, good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all here today. Thanks for joining the session. So we're going to talk about the impending ESG reporting requirements that are coming into our industry in 2024 next year. It's been really interesting. I don't know if you caught the panel on it this morning. There was a panel session yesterday discussing whether we're ready as an industry, whether we're prepared. I have two questions in this, which I'd be very keen to ask you at the end, is to what extent are you aware of the impending reporting requirements coming from the EU? And obviously allied to that, the second part is how ready are you to be able to respond? I like to think we're ahead of the game at EchoSense. We do have a solution to help the reporting piece, but we'll go through. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about what's coming in terms of the regulations. And then I've got a demo for you of our version 8 of our software, where we've got our new sustainability dashboards where we feel we can help out. So first of all, what's happening in industry? So there are two reporting requirements that are coming in. One of them is new, one of them is existing. So we have the CSRD, which is the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. This is part of the EU Taxonomy Initiative. As you can see here, it impacts all organisations, so not just data centre operators. If you have a turnover of more than 150 million euro, or you have significant business operations in the EU, or you're using more than 2,780 megawatt hours a year. Sorry, it's a little bit dry, some of these statistics, but it's worth getting through it in terms of clarity. So basically, if you're using more than around 317 kilowatts of IT load, then you need to comply with the reporting. And then we've got the EED, which is the Energy Efficiency Directive. That's not new, but this is a revamp of that, so there are still discussions going on, and this is going to get reissued next year. And that also impacts organisations, not just data centres, but anybody who's got an IT load over half a megawatt, 500 kilowatts. The good thing, although they're similar but different, they both then relate back to the same set of ISO standards in terms of the reporting requirements. So we've put those into this slide, and there are 9 in total. Okay, and we'll just work through those very quickly. So part 1 isn't on the slide, but it's basically an overview of all the requirements. And then as you can see here, we've got part 2, which is good old PUE, power usage effectiveness, that we've obviously all been talking about for a long time. But then we're going to add in some new ones. So we've got renewable energy factor, so how much of your data center is powered by renewable resources. Parts 4 and 5 I'm going to come on to because they relate to IT stuff in a minute. Part 6 is energy reuse factor, so how much of your waste products and how much of your waste heat is going to be reused for other purposes. Part 7 is cooling efficiency ratio, so how effectively you can remove heat from the data center with your current cooling setup. Part 8, is carbon usage effectiveness, CUE, and we can calculate that using carbon intensity rates versus the amount of power that you're using. And then part 9 is water usage effectiveness. Obviously we can get that from water meters in respect of, again, your IT load. So those are the 6 that affect data center operators. But there are then 2 more, which, as I mentioned, affect IT. So we've got part 4, which is IT equipment energy efficiency, and part 5, which is IT equipment utilization. Obviously, if you're a colo, that data is going to have to come from your tenants. If you're an enterprise data center, you will be required to report on all of that as well. Okay, so that's basically the set of ISO standards. You can download the standards. There are consultants in the industry. We've also put this into an ebook as well, which I'll show you how to download at the end. It's taken me hours to get my head around this, so hopefully the ebook will help you navigate when you get there. And the reporting requirements do come in. There's some discussion around that at the minute. Broadly, the CSRD comes in May 2024, but you need to start collecting data from January. So this is obviously just around the corner, and we need to start bringing all this data in to be able to report in 2024 and 25. So how can EchoSense help with that? If you do know EchoSense, you may know us to be thermal optimization experts in the industry. We've been around over 10 years now, and we've got a really long heritage of thermodynamics expertise. We've helped lots of organizations remove thousands of tons of carbon from their enterprises over the years. So just to talk through that with our AI platform and our AI approach. So we are a sensor manufacturer. You don't have to use our sensors, but typically we will deploy wireless radio sensors in the data center to instrument the data center and gather data. And then we take that data and we analyze it using machine learning and AI in our cloud-based platform. And we are specialists at taking very large, complex data sets and then visualizing that for you in a meaningful, intuitive, and really easy to understand way. So in the example here, we can see we've got this nice 3D interactive digital twin, which we're feeding with live data from the sensors. And the racks on the floor in the white space become color-coded according to temperature. So we can see immediately, if we have a look at this particular data center example, we've got dark blue racks on the floor, which represent areas of the data center which are perhaps overcooled, which is a waste of cooling energy, something that we can optimize. But equally, you can see we've got orange and red racks on the floor as well, which represent hotspots, which could be a risk to IT equipment. And you can see the graph at the bottom. This data center is out of balance. So although it might have been designed uniformly at the start, as we take IT equipment in and we move it out over a period of time, the site can become imbalanced, the cooling can become imbalanced. And at the bottom, we've got a very wide degree variation in rack temperatures. So that gives us two things. It's very hard to manage our SLAs if that's the case. We've got a big wastage of cooling energy going on, and also potential risk to IT equipment with hotspots as well. So we take this data with our AI, as mentioned, our machine learning, and our platform makes recommendations to the operator to make fine-tuned changes, so changes to the cooling architecture, or changes to things like raised floor tiles to optimize airflow. And then we can optimize the data center. We do this over time, and we get from this unbalanced situation, the graphic in the middle, to racks that are all green on the right. Green is good. We've got a much balanced data center. After optimization, we've got much better compliance to things like ASHRAE standards. We've got safer IT equipment, safer M&E equipment, because we've reduced hotspots, and we've also taken out energy as well. So that's fundamentally what we do. Really important to add at this stage that we don't control anything with EchoSoft, our platform. It's purely an advisory platform. So from a cybersecurity perspective, this is a cloud-based platform, but we're not controlling anything. Nobody can hack into this system and start turning off your cooling, anything like that. So that's fundamentally what a lot of people would know us for in the industry today, as I mentioned. Maybe what we're less known for as well is also within our platform, we've got an ability to create a digital twin of the electrical system as well. So you can see here in this example, we've got a representation of the site mains, basically the electrical critical power paths from the site mains, going through the UPS architecture, and then down to room PDU level, even rack PDU level. And then you can see we can use this for compliance, so to prove that we've got the right levels of redundancy or availability. We can use it for capacity planning, but through integration, and this is the bit where the energy reporting starts to come together, we can read live data from the devices themselves. So in this case, we can pick up, using common protocols, we can talk to the UPS, sampling data, and then we can understand the energy and power consumption of any component or the complete system as well. So this is, as I say, this is where the energy reporting piece starts to come together. And then in terms of how we get data into this platform, because that is going to be one of the key challenges to unlocking the reporting puzzle. As I say, we are a sensor manufacturer today, so you don't have to use our sensors, but we find often it's easier to instrument the data center with our radio frequency sensors. So you can see top left there, we'll have a little echo sensor that would go on each rack. These things are wireless and they have a 5-year battery, so it's a very easy thing to retrofit into a live environment. So the rack sensor is measuring temperature and humidity. On the right-hand side, we have a sensor called an echo air that goes inside the cooling unit. So that's measuring cooling unit supply, temperature, return temperature, and cooling duty. And then we can measure the ratio and the relationship between those two, and we can figure out things like zones of influence, so which cooling unit is affecting which racks, for example, and how we optimize. And then we aggregate all of these sensors together using wireless hubs. Again, very easy thing to deploy. And then data is collected on our data aggregator, which is called an Echo Link. And then we then encrypt the data, send it out in transit to the cloud, and it's anonymized on the AWS platform. So it's a very safe and easy system to deploy, and we can scale this on any data center from small edge sites all the way up to hyperscale. And then just to take that architecture a little further forwards, so again, at the bottom there, we've got our wireless sensors, our hubs, and that's going up through a switch into the Echo Link. But our Echo Link then has a separate port, a second port that we can connect to the customer network, and then through integration, as you can see on the right there, through common protocols, so SNMP, BACnet, Modbus, or OBIX, we can pretty much communicate and analyze data from pretty much any device on the network. Okay, so we can get everything through the site electrical system, obviously the thermal data in the room, into a single platform very easily. Sebastian, that's probably something we should talk about in terms of data gathering when we come to the Q&A part as well. That's a really key part within this. So then we come on to the latest iteration of our platform, EchoSoft version 8. Within that, this is where we're going to now help you start to meet the reporting requirements of CSRD and EED. So we've got this new intuitive dashboard. It's designed for both very large estates, so you can have a helicopter view of the complete estate, and you can zoom in and see metrics across the enterprise, or then we can drill down into individual sites and individual rooms as well. I've got a video on it we'll walk through in a minute. And then we've baked into that the first iteration, which actually launched last week. Some of the key metrics you can see here, so PUE, WE, CU and CER. So by the end of this year, with the iterations that we're releasing, we're going to be in a position to help you meet all of the reporting requirements. So with that, let me just go on to the next line. We've got a video. Obviously, you can run some reports on that as well. The video does go quite fast, so I'm going to stop it just so I can comment on a few things without talking like a madman throughout. So if I stop and start a little bit, forgive me as we go through. Let's see if we can play this. Okay, I'm just going to pause there. So as you can see, this is the first view that you'll get when you dial in. So you've got this nice intuitive dashboard, which gives us enterprise navigation. So it's very easy to drill down into individual sites and individual rooms. And at this level, it gives us alerts and status monitoring. So we can see if the site is up, we can see if we've got any alarms, if the temperature's moved out of band, anything like that. We can see at this view. The system can send notifications as well. So if you run this in a NOC, the system can send SNMP traps and emails to notify people, and underneath that we have a permissions model as well, so you can notify the right individuals for the right site. Then we can drill in and have a look at individual rooms, so we can see the metrics of each room, as you can see here. Then we move on to thermal data. So in this view, we can see obviously things like temperature, min, max, average, relative humidity for the room. We have our Echo score, which is a mixture of metric to see how efficient the room is set up in terms of optimization. We can also look at things like ASHRAE compliance at this level as well. So basically, we can see if we're actually adopting best practice to optimize the rooms and keep them optimal throughout the life cycle. And the next view we have is power data. Again, you can zoom in onto a particular region. So this would be site power trends. So PUE, for example, room and site PUE. Obviously, we can see cooling trends as well. If the room is trending up in terms of efficiency or trending down, are we maintaining efficiency levels in each particular site? And then the next view is utilization. So how much of the room's resources we've consumed today. So power, space and cooling, what we've consumed and what's available. And then we come down in the dashboard to view the specific metrics, as you can see here, to meet the reporting requirements. So basically we've designed also all the formulaic stuff underneath this is aligned. So we've spent a lot of time looking at the ISO standards. So in terms of the right way to calculate PUE, so how the data is collected, how it's measured, how it's presented. Obviously the same for water, based on water meter data as well. So everything aligns with the ISO standard straight out of the tool. And then underneath this, you'll be able to run reports. Then we've got things like alerting. So again, you know, if a rack temperature starts to go out of band, we've got a risk of hotspots. The algorithm picks this up, and quite often much quicker than the BMS or other monitoring systems. Then we can drill down into the room itself, and this is where our real-time monitoring comes in at the room level. So this is the typical view that we have, and there's lots of filters on here, as you can see on the right-hand side there. So we can cut and dice basically any view of the data center. So if you just want to have a look at things like racks, in this case we're showing temperature variation from the front to the back of the rack, obviously depending on the temperature you've got. We can also show views like power utilization, so how much power is consumed, airflow direction. Basically it's an all-round M&E tool to give you lots of different aspects of data center visualization. This one is interesting. It's called our cooling zones of influence. So again, this is part of our core intellectual property. We're analyzing how air is being delivered from the cooling unit, and then we're analyzing how the air is being received at the rack level, and we measure things like rate of change baked into our algorithm. And you can see here these color-coded zones are basically which cooling unit is influencing which racks. And that then gives us the intelligence to be able to optimize the site in terms of tweaking individual cooling units. And then we can drill into individual units, we can pull down reports, pre and post optimization, we can track lots of different metrics, including energy utilization, obviously cooling duty, how hard the cooling is working to provide cold air. Then we come on to the optimization piece, so this is our cooling advisor. So basically, we like to talk about quick to value at EchoSense. So when you plug the system in, we start collecting data. It's going to start to do its work, analyzing the data set from the site. And then very quickly, the tool is able to analyze that and to start to make recommendations. So you can run this probably within a week or two of actually installing the system. So you can see here, we're going to ask it to run an optimization now. We're going to ask it to give us some advice as to the optimal setup for the data center. And we can select, as you can see on the right-hand side, so the max temperature, min temperature, so our SLA that we're aiming for. So if you're looking to tighten that up, or perhaps you're looking to increase the temperature in the data center, this is a really safe way to do that in terms of minimizing our risk along the way. Obviously, you can look at things like redundancy within the SLAs as well. And then the tool is going to give us some recommendations. So in a traditional design data center, that might be things like moving air tiles around to balance airflow. We can see that on a plan view, and then you can accept these changes and go and make them happen in the real world. Or it might be things like increasing set points on air handling units as well. And if we take these actions over time, this is going to help us keep the data center optimized. And we've got lots of reference cases on this, by the way, of people like Telehouse 3 and lots of other companies that we've worked with over the years in terms of the amount of energy we've taken out. So that's a very quick demo of our tool. Sorry, it's a little bit stop and start as we go through. Version 8 is launched, it came out last week. We have some more iterations coming through. And just to wrap up, so last slide before I hand back over to Sebastian. So a bit of a marketing slide, but I think in terms of what we're able to do here, in terms of automating reporting is a really key point on this slide. So basically we can apply the system to any data center. It's going to capture data automatically, and it displays it, as you can see, in a really intuitive way to help meet all of the CSRD and EED reporting requirements as we go through. And this, I think, is going to have a positive impact, hopefully, on operational teams, because this is going to be a lot of work to gather this data in a manual way. Obviously, this is auditable as well, so that the EED and CSRD reporting is going to be, there's an audit requirement behind it, so this is going to help us meet the auditing stuff. And obviously, we can apply this very quickly to any size data center as well. So I hope that was useful, a whistle-stop tour of what we're doing. Sebastian, let me bring you back in here.
Thank you so much. I'll move a bit closer so you can hear me.
Yeah, sure.
Drill down into some of the data stuff, and we'll have a couple of times for some questions of your own, so I don't think I'll run over the microphone if you have any. But how much data are we collecting here? How many sensors do we need in an average data center? Start with that, and then I have a few others.
Yeah, so maybe the second part of that question. So the way that our system works and the algorithms, we need a minimum, we recommend a minimum of one sensor per rack. Right. And then obviously we've got a sensor inside each cooling unit. So it's fairly granular from that respect. However, we don't need to use our sensors, so we can take data points for our integration from the cooling units. If you've got existing sensors, BMS points or other manufacturer sensors today, we can integrate that data, yeah. Typically we collect data every 5 minutes. We can bring the sampling rate down to a minute if required, but obviously across, you can do the maths, right? Across the data center, sampling every 5 minutes, hundreds of sensors, that becomes thousands, if not tens of thousands. We're analyzing billions of data points in our cloud today.
And how often is it real-time analyzing, or is it like every week you do a crunch of that data?
It's effectively real-time, so as the data's coming into the tool, we're analyzing it pretty much continuously.
And who owns that data?
So it's still the client's data.
Right.
So we don't own it, we're just there to help collect, analyze, and then display in a meaningful way. One of the good things about cloud is we can retain data for up to 7 years. Obviously that's much harder with on-prem systems because you've got a storage challenge on your hands, but it's still the customer's data. We're fully GDPR compliant, you can delete your data at any time as well, but it's still the customer's data effectively.
So you said in a week you can start making changes based on it, but how long till you say like genuine significant improvements start to show?
Yeah, pretty much straight away. I mean, also it depends, right? It depends on what the
how
work.
Bad it is.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it depends on you know the setup of the data center today, but also the workloads that are going through it and the business cycle. So if you're batch processing once a month, you're going to see peaks and troughs in IT load, and that will have an impact on the cooling, the mechanical engineering setup as well. So it depends on the nature of the customer's work
and the nature of like the environment. If it's particularly terrible summer or
weather has a dependence on this as well. Yeah, we can bring weather data into the tool, by the way, because obviously outside weather can influence in terms of thermal gain, external plant like chillers, condensers, things like that.
So obviously you focus a lot on these new directives that are coming in, sort of Damocles above us. How ready do you feel the industry is?
Probably a question for these guys.
Maybe they can show of hands. Who feels ready? Anyone? No one feels ready.
I wonder if there's enough clarity in the industry, Sebastian, today in terms of listing these standards. It is a bit to navigate, but actually, when you get your head around it, it's not too bad. It is fairly logical.
But so, like at a worst case, a company could just start collecting the data, just so they're ready, and then work out what they want to do.
That needs to happen from January the 1st. Yeah, absolutely. So it's not that far away now.
And so, do you need to first check out the site and work out what sensors are? Can they kind of decide what they need?
Yeah, there's a bit of survey work, but we can do that remotely. So if you can give us a mechanical, electrical schedule, so how many racks you have, how many sites, how many halls, how many cooling units, we can do that remotely. We don't have to come to site. Obviously, a lot of that data is in things like CAD, Visio drawings today, even spreadsheets. There is some crunch work to do, obviously, to get that data.
And then the other data question, IT efficiency, server utilization, server everything. Who's tracking that? Whose job is it to keep that data and maybe give it to you guys?
Yeah, great question. So humbly, we're not experts in that space, but there's lots of other people in the industry who are, and that's everyone from standard IT tools, I guess, like SolarWinds.
Right.
I know Rich Kenny and the team at Interact are doing some good work there, Vanessa Moffat and the team at QIO. So there are experts in that. I think what we all will aim to do in the longer term is to be able to consolidate that data in our dashboards. So we'll create a placeholder for it and then bring that data in. So if you do want hate to talk about single system of records because we talked about that with DSIM and that didn't really work.
A single pane of pain.
You've got it. So it's all about dashboards. But I think to your point, there are specialists out there, server telemetry experts that will be able to capture that data.
Awesome. Look, we could talk for many hours. If anyone has any questions they want afterwards, I'm sure you'll be hanging around your booth.
We do have a stand actually, if you want to come and check out the software, come and have a chat with the rest of our team, you're very welcome to come and join us. We're just on the other side of the main stage.
So thank you so much, really enjoyed it, appreciate it.
Thank you so much, thanks for the time today.